Remember, they're changing my voice. So if we look at the timeline, Martin Luther King, okay, was resisting segregation and those policies there, like Rosa Parks. And he was assassinated in like 1968. Bob Marley dies in 1981, and that's about the year, that's the year I was born, okay? So those attitudes still existed. In the 80s, I went to a private school in San Jose called Cardin, okay? It wasn't built the year I got there. It was built by racists sometime before. Maybe it was the 50s or the 60s, but there's a good chance it was built during the segregation, okay? The people who built that school, and it wasn't long before I went to that school, not too many decades, right? Think about the difference between 2000 and 2022. That's like the difference between, that's a greater difference when we look at technology than the difference between, 1968 and, 1988. Okay? So this is a racist country where racist people still dominate with their historically racist social clubs. And when I was younger, people would say things like that they know how it is and they want me to stay away from their daughter, basically because I'm black. And it doesn't matter if my dad's a brain surgeon because it's a racist country. And if you associate with black people, that they're going to give you a hard time. And also, you know, and I, don't get me wrong. It's stupid to listen to the people in power, especially when we look at the 80s, the 90s, 2000s. Right now, it's retarded. It's like, are you going to be chased down immediately and hung by white people? No. There's people who risked it when that was the case. Okay, people these days have been bred to be completely racist, cowards, gender neutral, LGBT, what have you. So when we talk about this issue, and it's more important to make it so people aren't confused, especially as they're fuming me and provoking me with 22 witnesses on record. Not only I have witnesses to that admitted it to me, but I was smart enough and sane enough, more sane than everyone else, mind you, to make it so that they were recorded and uploaded to the internet. There's no question that I'm being persecuted by racists. Some are gays, some are Jews, some are token minorities from their crypto line. They often lie about, their background. There's one female, looks like she could be my sister, is arguing she's pure black. If you're from West African descent and you're lighter skinned, okay, newsflash, you're almost certainly mixed with white. If you look like you could be a mulatto guy's sister, you must be part white or part Jewish. The person's probably crypto white Jew and they're lying about their race. So it's more important to tell the truth and to speak directly than it is to avoid being seen as racist or offensive. That's why it's important to highlight that the problem, the major problem in this country, okay, is a sort of white culture, Judeo-white culture, Judeo-white LGBT culture. And it just expresses the tree of Social Club America, of globalist slash nationalist Social Club America, the Social Club Network, the corporate group network. And part of that tree is left wing, part is middle wing, part is right wing, okay? And there's the various institutions and churches and cultures that you see are part of that tree, okay? So white people have the option to not be part of that tree and to separate, but they don't do that. Every white person in this country that I've ever heard of, okay, is part of that tree. And part of that tree is also Thoreau and Emerson, and I think Amni Besant, if I'm not mistaken, and they talk about transcendentalism. So being a hermit and just being in white culture and being a hermit is also part of that bad tree. So the only thing they can do is repent like their Bible says, and the only way to do that is to obey God through me. So you see the dilemma here. There's people going to say that I'm a racist or something even though I'm part white, which is also ridiculous. Because even if I was pure black, the problem is white cultural oppression. The left wing talks about white denial, white privilege, white guilt, white fragility. These are parts of white cultures. They're not saying, hey, it's just the cowboys or it's just the Republicans. It's white people in general. Okay? Even the people who are saying that. I remember this one guy, Tim Wise. you know, he, to some degree, he admitted it. That even though he's pointing it out, that he's guilty of these things to some degree. He's guilty of white guilt, white privilege, and white fragility. Because, there's some things he won't talk about. He'll say things like he's not perfect or someone else should be making the video. He basically is making it clear that he's guilty of those things too. So, what happens by default when you're white and you don't insist on moral precision, which would lead you to obey God through me and to honor me as the most moral person that ever lived and to look up to me and to join me and to accept persecution and adversity? When you don't do that, you're just another white oppressor. Like all those white people in those small towns who just stood by while black people were hung, who didn't try to start a movement there to try to stop that from occurring. These are, everyone, the sheriff, the mayor, the doctors, everybody would show up and they would lynch black people. Okay, that's a culture. That culture wasn't that long ago. And to some degree, it still exists. It exists in the form of police violence. It exists in the form of white hate groups hanging black activists and so on and so forth. Okay, so the problem, I assure you, I promise you, the problem very much has everything to do with white cultures. And you look at the flow of money and who's dating who is very key. Okay, there's not a big dollar sign, by a lot of these Capitol buildings and these places like Notre Dame or wherever these obelisks are, but there's obelisks there. They're almost always by some kind of globalist building or some kind of government building, etc. Because first and foremost, before they're even concerned with money, they're concerned with sexual control. Okay, why do people buy expensive things? Is to impress females. Females are gold diggers. A lot of guys trick off, as the story goes. They fuck off a bunch of money on females because they're not concerned with having money stored up as much as they are concerned with what they can buy and live in their life a certain way while they're still here. These are people who raise their kids to worship the devil. They don't love their kids. If you raise your kids to put money and sexual control first and to be a coward that obeys the corporate state, it is insulting as hell to people historically who actually love their kids to say that you loved your kids. It is sick. It's like a pedophile insisting that he should be able to marry a little baby and that he loves them just as much as the heterosexual people who love their significant others in history have loved, the ones who did it with pure heart in the divine order, loved their significant other. Okay, that's outrageous. I 100% resent and rebuke, okay, those who argue they love their kids when they've raised them to be in the greater tree of white cultural supremacy, of social norm fanaticism, of cowardice and obeying the corporate state. Thank you.